So in this video, I wanted to see how good is a console price PC. That rhyming though. I'm going to be on form in this commentary, I can tell. But this is the PC here. I got it from Gladiator Computers, from the parts, and it costs £359.99 if you build it yourself. And there is a build guide at the end of this video, so if you wanted to learn how to build a PC in 5 minutes, you can there. It is worth noting, before we start, the PC here was sponsored to me. So I didn't have to pay for the PC. Well, at the time of recording this video, I haven't had to send it back. So basically, I looked on PC Part Picker to get an idea of the parts I wanted, and that site isn't always the cheapest for prices, you know, because PC Part Picker is just a bot that looks at a couple of websites. As you can see here, Gladiator Computers' Aria's wish list for exactly the same items was significantly cheaper, so obvious choice. You may be wondering why the PC costs £360 when PlayStation 4 only costs £279 and Xbox One costs £246.50 in the UK. At that price, I don't think, unless you buy a second-hand PC, you can actually compete with consoles. They're simply better. But if you want to play with a mouse and keyboard on console, you'd have to spend about £100 extra on a converter. So I added that onto the price, so we've got something to work with here. What's in the PC though? Well, this is a bit difficult for me because initially I was going to try and match the exact components in the PlayStation 4, which is the stronger of the two consoles, and that would be basically a 7850 Radeon graphics card and a 1.8 GHz 8-core processor and 8 GB of RAM. The thing about that is that it seems obviously well outdated by today's standards, and it is, but I don't mean that in a bad way, because in consoles there's so many, like, they can code at a much lower level and the hardware isn't like built like a computer's built, so you have so many more efficiencies and you can get so much more out of it. So I kind of went for what was really good value for money at this kind of price point instead. The processor is an Intel G4400, which isn't exactly a good processor. You're going to feel things perhaps a little bit slow in Windows. It takes 3 seconds for Google Chrome to load up. But according to CPU Benchmark, it is the best value to performance processor that Intel currently make. So that's why I decided to go with that. I also tend to prefer Intel and Nvidia because I really like Shadowplay, which is Nvidia's recording software. There's no frame drop whatsoever with it, and all the gameplay in this is recorded with that. If you're not familiar with PC gaming either, you can literally go into GeForce Experience, click Optimize, and it's as easy as that. You can just launch up the game and it'll have the correct settings most of the time. The graphics card is a Gigabyte GTX 950 Extreme Gaming WindForce. It's quite a mouthful, but basically it's pretty much the same price as the stock card. You get a slight overclock on it, a better cooler which runs a little bit quieter, and believe it or not, you can customize the lighting of the card to fit your case. I haven't tried it, but apparently it's amazing. More amazing though is how the card performs relative to consoles. This is like relative by the stats how it performs, but the PlayStation 4 has obviously got far better optimization, so it gets a lot more out of hardware than a equivalent PC would get. I would say for the 950, it's a pretty decent entry-level card, especially this version, but you're better off price to performance-wise going for something like the 970, because you're kind of future-proofing yourself with that as well. The PC's also got a Thermaltake AeroCool case. Obviously the case is where you want to save the money on a PC build like this. It's got a Z97 Sniper motherboard, a 500 watt power supply, 1TB hard drive, and also 4GB of Crucial RAM. I would say go for 8GB of RAM. It's like £10 more and you won't encounter some of the problems I encountered later. I was just trying 4GB to see how it performs. The next question I had though was, how does the PC perform relative to consoles? And to know that, you've got to know what settings consoles are actually on. Like, this is Battlefield 4 on Xbox One, which I know is running at 60 frames per second, 720p, and if you're playing on PlayStation 4 it runs at 60 frames per second, 900p. Aside from that, I don't know what graphical settings it's on. I mean, it looks like it's perhaps on medium-high compared to PC. There's not a lot of anti-aliasing, shadows and things kind of pop in a bit, and there's a crap ton of motion blur for some reason, but do these things actually matter? Because you're not really designed to play a console the same way as you're meant to play a PC. You're meant to be sat like 2-3 meters away on a TV screen. That's why they have such a low field of view, and at that kind of distance, you can't see these things. Let's look at how this PC performs though, in some games, starting with my most anticipated upcoming game, Star Citizen, which amazingly, you can actually play on very high at 1080p. Above 30 frames per second for the vast majority of the time, in at least the simulator. Probably not so much in multiplayer, but look how beautiful this looks. Really a nice surprise that the PC was actually able to run this, to be honest. Just to test it thoroughly, went into the hangar, which is one of the laggiest places in the known universe. Usually feel like Benjamin Button here, because that laggy time feels like it's going backwards. But still, had to turn the settings down to low, but managed to get above 30 frames per second a lot of the time. It was a little bit juddery, I think, due to the low RAM. Still pretty impressive, I think. Rainbow Six Siege. Encountered a small problem with this. Because of the low amount of RAM, sometimes you can't load into the game quick enough to actually select your loadout. And you can't use high quality textures as well because it exceeds the memory of the graphics card. Once you're in game, it still, on the recommended settings, looks really beautiful. I mean, it is an indoor game, so obviously you'd expect the frame rate to be okay. Really quite pleasant. I don't think you'd be a disadvantage playing in this on this PC.
Repelling hostile, but into a surprise.
Door barricade deployed!
Battlefield 4. If you're looking forward to Battlefield 5, this and Battlefront, which I'm going to cover in a second, are both good games to look at. Now, I managed to get everything on Ultra here and get above 30 frames per second, but I would say this puts you at a disadvantage when shooting at people, because it's much more difficult to control the mouse at a lower frame rate. So really in a multiplayer game like this, I'd say you probably want to aim above 60 frames per second. There are a lot of things you can turn off though. In these older versions of Frostbite engine, they actually fixed this a bit in Battlefront. There's significant input lag on your mouse if you've got anti-aliasing and ambient occlusion turned on. So turning those off, your mouse feels like it's in custard. If you play on a fairly low sensitivity, you'll be able to feel the difference. They seem to have fixed that, so hopefully it'll be fixed in Battlefield 5.
Missile inbound.
Overwatch, my favourite multiplayer game at the moment. I can't wait till everybody gets in the open beta, because that's coming in May. And I got in about a month ago, and it's been an absolute blast, this game. I'm playing with everything on Epic here. You can see I'm getting about 45-50 frames per second. I was a little bit disappointed with that. I thought I'd get a slightly higher frame rate on this PC, and low settings didn't really seem to improve it very much. I fear in an aim-based game like this, where it's obviously easier to aim with a higher frame rate, you might be at a bit of a disadvantage playing on this PC.
I've got you in my sights.
Counter-Strike. As you can imagine, the game runs pretty smoothly. It runs really smoothly, I think, on any PC. You get about 70 to 100 frames per second with the things like anti-aliasing you'd want turned off. And, yeah, I mean, it's Counter-Strike.
Главное, что не у тебя. Blue, go B. No, go B. B. Go B. Сука. Окей.
Arma 3. I was a bit optimistic about this game because it runs notoriously bad on PC, and although you can play everything on Ultra and still get above 30 frames per second in single player, I think in multiplayer that is just not going to happen whatsoever because it's terribly laggy in that. I think you need a better PC for Arma 3. Fallout 4. Really fun game, but built on a really old engine and somewhat unstable. If your frame rate goes above a certain limit on PC, everything happens quicker, like you run and all the characters talk quicker, but the audio sounds exactly the same, so just everything in the game is out of sync. That wasn't the issue here. This stuttering, I think, is because there just isn't enough RAM in the PC, because when I turned down settings quite a bit, it became perfectly smooth. This is 1080p with everything on low, and this would be perfectly playable. I'm actually quite impressed, you know, because this is a big open world and it seems to run alright. Star Wars Battlefront. This is probably the closest to Battlefield 5's performance you're going to get. As you can see, this guy is also amazed, not only by my dancing, but because this game managed to run on ultra settings at, well, a fairly decent frame rate. I mean, there are these little stutters you can occasionally see, which is a I think is a RAM issue. Really, this is an incredibly well optimized game, I have to say, because this is one of the most beautiful forests in any game ever, I think. On low settings it ran even better, and there's less of the anti-aliasing related like mouse-like issues in this game than was in Battlefield 4, so really quite impressive, I think. I figured it was perhaps a good time now to conclude the video, since I would imagine World War IV is probably kicking off in the comments right now about console and PC. World War IV, you say? It's that bad, it skips World War III. But I'm not too concerned about console or PC, because I'm going to enjoy playing Uncharted 4 when it comes out on the PlayStation 4 this month. But I'm also going to enjoy playing Star Citizen when it comes out on the PC, so best of both worlds, I think. Is this PC, though, a good introduction to PC gaming? And I'd have to say, if you can spend a bit more, you get so much more from a PC in terms of price to performance. The PC I reviewed before Christmas, the Gladiator Apocalypse, which had a 6400, but I said upgrade to the 6600, and a 970 in it, that's like the sweet spot at the moment. That is a very good value for money PC right there. It still is. And you're so much better going for that, because with a PC like this, you have to make some compromises about what you can play and how you can play it, and you just don't get the full experience. I know some people have been getting a bit excited recently because the PlayStation 4 is getting this supposed 4K upgrade. I mean, it's going to get an upgrade, but that's a load of rubbish. Like, it's not going to be in 4K. It's going to be PlayStation 10 will get a 4K. Because things just don't advance that quickly. Even PlayStation 5 is only going to be 1080p, 60 frames per second. I think there was a bit of confusion because DisplayPort 1.3 comes out this year. You get one of them. That guy's desperate attempt to get this ship. That is probably the finest space plan I've ever seen. It cracks me every time I watch it, but it's such a good game, Star Citizen. But DisplayPort 1.3 is 4K at 120Hz, which is a big leap forwards, but you still get what you pay for. Like, a PlayStation 4 is £200, whereas a 4K PC is well over £1,000. I just like to say as well, like, just make sure you research, check things like Trustpilot and such before you buy a PC. I don't get anything if you buy these. I'm only doing these because I think they're interesting, and well, I mean, they take 3 times as long as normal videos, so you have to think about that in the comments. But yeah, and that PC at Christmas, that's got 5 stars in Trustpilot. I don't recommend rubbish, but yeah, I mean, just research yourself with these things, like, because I know Gladiator Computers area do like really good PCs, but I'm sure there are others that do. I can just speak from my experience on these things. If you do want to know how to build a PC, I'm going to show you in just a second. It only takes 3 minutes. The wish list of parts and everything is linked in the description. Thanks to Gladiator PC area for sponsoring this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I shall see you in the next chapter. No need to get excited, this is not my arm, but this is how to build a PC in 3 minutes. If you're having a fan on the front of the case, you need it facing this way through the dust filter. You need to screw the hard disk through these holes, one he prepared earlier. Next, we've got to put in the power supply. And this screws into the back of the case. Next, we need to put in the CPU. Ooh, this is dramatic. Just need to unclip it and remove the cap, because you don't need that. Hold the CPU by the edges, put it in, and then just slide the lever down. The fan just sits on top, and you just push in the pins. Obviously, if you've got a water cooler like the H80, there'll be a back plate you need to put on as well, but that'll be in their instructions. Connect the cable from the fan you've just put on. Open the RAM clip and slide in the RAM. It can only go in one way, and if you've got 2 sticks, you put them in the same colour, so both in green or both in black. And then, if you've got 4, obviously, fill all the holes. Next, you need to clip in the motherboard's input-output panel. Connect this power cable to the motherboard, and then screw the motherboard onto the back where these screw holes are. Connect the front panel wires to the motherboard. This is how they should look if you've already connected them. Next, you need to connect the hard disk to the motherboard. So you feed this cable through the back and plug it in. And you'll also need to plug a power cable into the back of that hard disk as well. Time for the graphics card. We need to just unclip this at the end. Different cases have different things on the back, but you need to take out 2 of these panels. It's sometimes easier to lay the case on his back to slot the graphics card in, but he's also got the fan cable going behind it just to look neat. Screw in the graphics card to the back, make sure you've got any of the fan connectors connected to the motherboard. Put the case back together, plug in your monitor, mice and all those other kind of things. Stick your Windows CD in, turn the PC on, and you're good to go.